Wednesday, allegations of rights abuses have been leveled against the Zimbabwean government. Catholic bishops in the country accused the government of violating human rights and cracking down on dissent, prompting a swift denial by President Emmerson Mnangagwa's administration, which described the allegations as baseless. In a letter read at the Catholic churches on Sunday, the Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops' Conference said the country was suffering from a multi-layered crisis. In response, Information Minister Monica Muzvangwa criticized the head of the Bishops' Conference, Archbishop Robert Ndlovu, and described the pastoral as an evil message meant to soak a genocide.
Well, joining us now from Zimbabwe to discuss the situation in the country is TAFADZWA MUGWADI, Information Director of Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF party. TAFADZWA, many thanks for joining us on Newsday today to discuss this in more detail. Let's start off with the reactions to South Africa's special envoy's visit to Zimbabwe. As we know, this was in response to allegations of arrests of government critics and the shutting down of anti-government protests. South Africa had stated that they would meet with the government of Zimbabwe and also with relevant stakeholders. Yet they left out meeting with the opposition or any CSOs that are researching and reporting on this matter. I mean, why was this so? Is the government of Zimbabwe the only relevant stakeholder in this matter?
Thank you very much for reaching to us. Firstly, let me just disabuse the listeners and say this categorically and unequivocally, that there are no human rights violations of any kind or nature in Zimbabwe. Just like any other country in this world, Nigeria included, the South Africans themselves included, our country is in series of lockdowns which are aimed at ensuring that as a leadership we contain the spread of COVID-19. This is what we are doing. And in the process of enforcing that lockdown, you find errant and non-compliant members of the public. What do you do with those members of the public? You use the law in line with the regulations that have been passed by the President, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa and his government, to say all citizens must stay at home if they are not offering any essential services, those that are aimed at ensuring that the government fights this pandemic effectively. They must stay at home. When people do not stay at home, they will be forced to stay at home, and this is this is aimed at making sure that we protect their lives from this vicious pandemic. The world over, all nations and societies are doing that. Zimbabwe is not an exception. Secondly, the narrative that we are violating human rights is not coming from Zimbabwe. It is not coming from communities in Zimbabwe, to the extent that you may need to be aware that this country has been suffering a lot of international vilification, sponsored by hostile embassies and diplomatic missions in this country. We have maintained a regime change policy against the government of Zimbabwe.
All right, TAFADZWA, would you permit me to call your attention? Would you permit me to call your attention to the Roman Catholic bishops highlighting of corruption, poverty, and human rights abuses? Because you're saying it's not coming from within Zimbabwe, but the Catholic bishops are saying that the country is ridden with corruption, although your compatriot, the Information Secretary, Nick Magwana, has actually said there are no crises or political crises or whatsoever in Zimbabwe. Why is it that Zimbabwe have decided to live in a bubble and in a state of denial?
Thank you very much for that question. Now, firstly, let me say we are not in any state of denial altogether. We can't be told about the situation that is happening on our background in our own country by outsiders who know nothing about what they are suggesting. That's number one, okay? Number two, when it comes to the Catholic bishops, I'm sure, to do just some comparative politics. You know what happened in DRC when President Tshisekedi was declared the winner against Fayulu. The Catholic bishops in DRC wanted to rally for a massive violent demonstration and protest, saying that it is Mr. Fayulu that was supposed to be declared the president. He had won the election, and that elections had been rigged. So we know that there are some clergymen and women who are not necessarily men of the pulpit, as they would want to pretend against in the face of the world. They are engaged in politics, and theirs exist to engage in politics of regime change and opposition politics in particular. To the extent that, and we're going to ask you, which country in Africa can say it does not have poverty enclaves within its society? Nothing. Even Nigeria does have. South Africa does have. Zimbabwe does have. Poverty is a serious issue in Africa which must be tackled by the people united as one to confront that. President Emerson Mnangagwa's Vision 2030 is aimed at ensuring that Zimbabwe becomes an upper middle income economy by 2030. But to achieve that, the onus is on the people of Zimbabwe to work on productive sectors of the economy, such as farming and mining, to ensure that we reach there. We don't end poverty by organizing violent demonstrations. We don't end poverty by organizing against the government. This is not how we do it.
All right, good.
That is why the pastoral letter has been dismissed as frivolous, out of touch, and one that themselves we doubt if they ever wrote it. It was a seditious letter.
Let me comment. Let me comment there.
Which is unfortunate.
Let me comment there a wee bit. One thing seems to stand clear, and that's the fact that there's a disconnect somewhere between the government, the people that the government is leading, and then, of course, the bishops who got together in a conference. Have you tried, the government tried to reach out to these various parties, talking about what is the way forward?
Thank you very much. Let me say, the Catholic Church is one church among so many churches and among so many religious groupings in this country. We're a Christian nation, but Christianity is not the only religion. That's number one. Two, in the Christian circles, the Catholic Church is not the only one. And again, the statement does not even reflect members of the Catholic, church, ordinary members of the Catholic Church. This is a group of bishops with an agenda who have organized themselves to rebuke government out of baseless allegations. There is no country that is not fighting corruption. Tell me one society where there is no corruption. But the issue that they were raising with regard to corruption, do you know that the government of President Emerson Mnangagwa, so far, even in the region, is the only government that has fired at least 3 ministers and had a former minister having to make time in jail? I'm talking about Comrade Samuel Mdenge, who was a minister, a cabinet minister. He's now in jail, serving 2 years out of his conviction. Out of his conviction to issues to do with corruption. That's how we fight corruption. But what then we do see at the moment is that there is a lot of lies and propaganda being peddled by ghost accounts, faceless Twitter accounts on social media to say Zimbabwe is in a crisis. I will tell you, have you ever heard of a single person that died in this country at the hands of security forces as they were enforcing a lockdown? No.
TAFADZWA, let me come in here. I do find it quite bizarre that the Zimbabwean government does continue to deny these allegations, but let's also speak about your really concerning inflation rates. Annual inflation in Zimbabwe did accelerate to 837.53% in July. That was what the Zimbabwean National Statistics Agency put out on Saturday in a Twitter post. The year-on-year rate for June was 737.3%. With rising inflation like this, and the fact that you're also trying to float a $3.5 billion bond at the moment to white farmers in line with your sanction requirements, it seems as though you're in a lose-lose position. What is the government really trying to do about this? Are you trying to engage the international community to find a middle ground? Because, it's going to be impossible for you to raise a bond when your inflation rates are over 800%.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask you, you said what our denial is quite bizarre to you. Do you have the evidence that we are denying what is happening?
We can start with Hopewell Chinono. We can start with the journalist Hopewell Chinono, who is currently being locked up and denied bail on charges of inciting violence. I find it quite bizarre that happened just after he put out quite a few reports exposing medical corruption in the Zimbabwean government. But if you could please answer my question with regards to inflation, I would really appreciate that.
I would greatly appreciate if you also allow me to answer your suggestion that Hopewell Chinono is an evidence of human rights violation. I will ask you this question. Are you saying that, tell me any jurisdiction across the world where journalists are immune from arrest?
Nobody is saying that journalists are immune for arrest. It's just the way in which his arrest happened is what we're talking about. But if you want to deny, that, that's okay. The Zimbabwean government continues to deny every bit of evidence that's brought their way.
It's ridiculous, I must say, to say that the arrest of a journalist becomes an issue of international discussion to say he should not be arrested. If it had been myself who had been arrested, were you going to make this outcry? How many ministers have been arrested out of corruption? The former Minister of Health even, received bail, but has issues with his court. With the courts over issues to do with corruption. You didn't make any noise about that. Now it's a journalist who was arrested. You say it's gross human rights violations. I think you are simply telling me that your conviction or appreciation of human rights issues is not quite what I would have imagined anyway. Because journalists in any jurisdiction are one cardinal rule of the rule of law and the democracy is that all people and members of society are equal before the law. That's a cardinal principle of the rule of law. It doesn't matter whether the rank of a person or a file or a status in society, as long as you have had issues before with the law, you have got to have your matters presided over by an independent judiciary, and this is what is happening. So when he has been denied bail over the issues that he committed with regards to motivating and inciting the public to engage in violence under the lockdown measures, where that had the potential to risk members of the public from contracting and spiking COVID-19 issues, how do you then say it's a human rights violation? I don't think it is necessary or the right thing to do for journalists or international media to be, motivated to say things that they do not have any basis about or strong knowledge about. I think that's speculation. It is not right. Now, when it comes to inflation, which was your earlier question anyway, let me take your memory lane. You are aware that the reason why this country is suffering under sanctions, which the African Union and SADC and the progressive world are saying remove sanctions from these innocent people, this innocent country, this small country. It is because those sanctions were aimed at our economy. And the whole purpose was to say, let us scream the economy, let us asphyxiate the economy, let us suffer the economy. And once we do so, we separate the people from the ruling party, ZANU-PF as a revolutionary party, and then have a puppet political organization taking over the reins of power in Zimbabwe. But guess what? The resilience of our people has taken us thus far. The party from which I'm speaking from, ZANU-PF, which is the ruling party, and its president, Emerson Mnangagwa, exist on the back of the people and the masses of Zimbabwe. We, in turn, reciprocally carries the mass of the people of Zimbabwe on our shoulders. This is the symbiotic relationship that we do have. So when people have failed to achieve regime change using all theatrics that they have tried, now they think they can achieve that on Twitter by peddling lies and propaganda. No, it cannot happen. In fact, when it comes to crisis in Southern Africa and other jurisdictions, I will tell you that while people are spreading lies and falsehoods that we're in a crisis, our worry as a country, as a people, as an individual, is events happening in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, which they have not talked about either. But you see that there is a civil war going there involving ISIS. And as a country and as a region, we must be seized with that to see how best we can help a neighbor, a country that needs our shoulder to lean on. But then, guess what? Those who have failed to achieve regime change think that it is their time to pounce on the people of Zimbabwe by spreading falsehoods. It doesn't operate that way. I don't think that is how it should be.
All right, thank you so much, TAFADZWA MUGWADI, Information Director, ZANU-PF, for your time on Newsday.